What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a deck profile for you guys. I just finished participating in a tournament called the Welcome to Primary Village tournament hosted by HGaming TCG. This was a tournament for content creators on YouTube and Twitch, so a bunch of other people who have their own channels were participating, and we all got to play against each other. So it was incredibly fun playing against people in the community who were trying to produce content for everyone to consume. So yeah, shout out to everyone, all my opponents, and especially to HGaming TCG for hosting this event. So I ended up getting fourth out of 32 people, and so this is my deck list here. I just want to run through my deck list and then talk about some of my reasoning, and then go over some of my matchups. So let's dive right in. So you guys can already see my deck list here. Let's zoom in just a bit and start going through all my different choices. So for my Digi-Eggs, I ran 4 Koromon and then 1 Yokomon. I've been playing around with the Yokomon and the Koromon ratios a bit. I feel like I like this more, even though Koromon doesn't always come up while Yokomon is live, as long as your opponent has a rested Digimon and you're attacking it. But I just don't like this as much. A lot of times when I have Megas, which has all its materials underneath, I don't feel comfortable attacking with something, especially if I want to play into an Omnimon. I risk running into something like another 12k vanilla if I'm attacking with Phoenixmon, for example, and then dying. So this is why I chose to run 4 Koromon, and I didn't really miss the Yokomon throughout the tournament, so that was good. Moving on, 4 Agumon, which is pretty standard. The extra 1000 DP is great for red, especially against blue or red mirror matches. Having that extra 1000 goes a long way, especially when you have your Megas who are sitting at 11 or 12 and they can beat over pretty much anything in the game other than Omnimon and Millenniummon. But yeah, those are the 2 exceptions. Guiomon I ran 4 of, sort of the same thing as Agumon. I know some people run less, but I wanted to just run him just to have the same 1000 extra, although he doesn't go live until your opponent has 5 or more in the trash, so not as useful in the early game, but I still think it's worth running. I know some people have cut it for additional Monodramon and Biomons who are just vanillas because they're low cost too, so you can just hard play them and not really worry about it. So that's a total of 14 different rookies, and I feel like that's a good ratio for this deck. Worst case scenario, if you draw too many rookies, you just start rookie rushing, but especially with red, it's really important to have your full evolution lines, so I feel like this number of rookies is pretty good. Alright, moving on, 4 blockers, 4 Cordramon, pretty standard. I considered cutting this to 3, but it's just really good. It saves you games and it stops you from getting rookie rushed early game. I always have a problem playing against purple for some reason, so I decided to just keep him in there. Dark Tyrannomon is pretty standard. He's a level or a 1 cost evolution for a level 4, which is great. So if you're trying to rush to your Omnimon, this is the card that you want to see. So no additional explanation needed there. Greymon at 4. So this Greymon has an inheritable effect. It gives your Digimon security attack +1. So this is really powerful in red. I think this is kind of a card that really represents what red does overall. And I think it's pretty good. 2 evolution cost, 5 hard drop. I did have to hard drop it a few times, which does hurt, but it's not the end of the world. Alright, moving on into the level 5s. Groundramon is, again, pretty standard. I run 4 of him. He's a 2 cost for a level 5 for Digivolution. He's also a 5 hard drop, which is great because a lot of times, if you're stuck between Groundramon and you have a bunch of rookies or you have a bunch of level 4s in hand, a lot of times it's just more useful to drop the Groundramon because it's, again, level 5, and then you can Digivolve into one of your Megas over it the following turn, or even that turn if you have enough memory. Anyways, moving on is Skull Greymon. So Skull Greymon, I had a lot of hesitation putting him in just because I felt like playing him for 7 was a bit too much. You have Gaia Force, which is 8 and it has no restrictions. It just deletes any Digimon. But one thing that I kind of failed to realize, and I started realizing this as I was playing this, he is a body. So a 7k vanilla, or you can Digivolve a Mega on top of him. So I think Skull Greymon is really good. Worst case scenario, you can just use him to, if you need to get to your Mega and you need to get Omnimon, he is a 3 cost Digivolution, which isn't terrible. It's not the greatest, but right now in 1.0, we only have 1 red 2 cost evolution at level 5 anyways in the form of Groundramon. So until we get, I think it's Lava Garidamon in 1.5, this 3 cost is going to be pretty standard. So moving on to my next level 5, my final slot, I have War Growlmon. So this is a decision that I went back and forth on a lot. So initially what I was doing was I was running 2 Metal Tyrannomon because he's a vanilla 10k beat stick and he has the same Digivolution cost. And then I was running 2 of him and I wasn't sure what I should cut. I wanted to try out Skull Greymon. So I ended up cutting War Growlmon and putting in Skull Greymon. So I was still running the 2 Metal Tyranno, but Metal Tyranno, the only function that he serves is that he's a 10k beat stick, which is great. But really, for this deck or really any deck, the benchmark right now in the meta is sort of like the 7k breaking point, right? So if you can beat 7k, you're most likely you have higher chances of surviving your security checks. I mean, you can always run an Omega or Omnimon or a Gaia Force, but if you look at most of the ultimates out there, most of the level 5s, most of the level 4s, you're not going to see anything higher than 6 and 7. So 7 is pretty good. Anything over a 7, I think, is relatively safe. So War Growlmon was kind of fulfilling that same role as Metal Tyrannomon in a way. And then he also has 2 additional effects, which I really liked. So I am playing some Tamers, which I'll get to in a minute. But if you have a Tamer in play, a red Tamer in play, when he is Digivolve for Digivolution cost of 3, you get to destroy 1 Digimon on your opponent's side with 3000 DP or less. And I think that's really, really good against Rookie Rush decks, against purple, and a few other things. It just comes up pretty often. Not always, but like it comes up enough where I think it is worth running. It's nice to have. Worst case scenario, he serves the same exact purpose as Metal Tyrannomon. The only time I miss having Metal Tyrannomon is in the red mirror where my opponent's playing Metal Tyrannomon, and then I have a difficulty, getting over that additional 2k difference. That 2k difference can be mitigated potentially by if I have like a Yokomon or if I have Agumon, but that requires 2 different things. Or if I have a starter deck Tai, which I'll get to. But overall, I think he fills that niche pretty well. I don't know if I would replace him. I'm liking him right now, but he's not something that would necessarily stick in future iterations of this deck. So that is a total of 12 champions and 8 ultimates. So I feel like the 8 ultimates is, I think it's in the okay range. It's not terrible, the level 5, especially because a lot of times I can just hard play the Skull Greymon, and the hard playing the Ground Greymon is pretty cost efficient for a level 5. Moving on to the level 6s, I'm playing 3 Volcanic Greymon. So 3 Volcanic Greymon might seem like a lot, but it is a red Digimon, and it does have a Digivolution cost of 3. So because I'm only playing 2 Omnimon, I only have 2 Omnimon at the moment, I might bump this up to 3 when I do get my hands on it after the official release. But for the time being, I have to play as if I'm not always going to draw Omnimon. So it's not necessarily like a full Omnimon Turbo, but I do have that option if I draw into it. So I need some megas which can attack basically and have good effects. So Volcanic Greymon, as you guys know, you can always just hard play him for 11 to lead all your opponent's Digimon with 4,000 or less. It occasionally comes up and it can win games, especially if you're getting rookie rushed. So that's pretty good. So it's a card worth running. Volcanic Greymon is only 10k, which does hurt a bit, but it does have security attack +1. So this is partially the reason why I also like War Growlmon, because if I can get War Growlmon underneath him, then he can potentially be 11, and then if I have something like Agumon or a Gyomon, along with a Koromon, that gets to 12 and then maybe 13, and if I have Tai, it can push even further. So that's really helpful because you're not always going to get all those within its sources, but if you can get enough, it'll kind of get over that benchmark of getting over the 12k vanillas and getting over some other 12k Digimon. And the 11k, of course, you'll also see against like Blue and a bunch of other decks. So getting over that benchmark, I feel like, is really important, which is why I felt like the War Growlmon was a decent pick, and which is also why I'm playing this Tai here. But yeah, I think that this can become very threatening, especially if you have a full Digivolution line underneath here. And if you have Greymon, it can become even better, because if you have Tai on the field and you have a Greymon underneath him and he has all his Digivolution sources, then he becomes security attack +1 by himself, 2 from Greymon, and then 3 from Tai. And then his DP can be boosted by having Agumon and Koromon, and maybe War Growlmon underneath. So he can sometimes push 12,000 with security attack +3, which is insane. So I think he's a pretty good card. I think for now this is a pretty good number. I do sometimes see too many of him, so maybe 2 would be good enough. But and then I could play maybe another Phoenix Mon or something else when I do get my hands on some other megas. But yeah, Volcanic Greymon I think is a great card, especially in red. So I definitely test it out if you haven't tried more than one. Next, I played War Greymon. War Greymon is amazing in my opinion. It's a bit underrated. His security attack +1 only lasts for the turn he's digivolved, and he's only 11k as opposed to the starter War Greymon, which I don't like because he's 4 cost digivolution. I think this War Greymon is really good because one, he does get the additional security check, and two is because he does not activate any security skills on options that it checks. So in the mirror, that's incredibly important because you can, if you digivolve into him, you can swing into your opponent's security without worrying about Gaia Force, because Gaia Force is just insane. In security, it can like completely change the outcome of the game. So War Greymon is really helpful for that. He's also 3-cost Digivolution, which pairs really well with Tai. So if you have a level 5 already and you have Tai, and it's your opponent's turn, when they pass, you're probably going to be able to digivolve into him. He'll get the security attack +1 for the turn, and then you can swing another security. Hopefully, you'll have something else underneath him that'll boost his DP a little bit, maybe an Agumon or a Koromon. If he has a full Digivolution line and you do have Tai, it'll bump him up even more. And not to mention, having Greymon, if you can throw that in there, this becomes insane because it just goes through your opponent's security, especially if you have the additional DP, and you don't have to worry about your option cards. All right, next I play one Gallantmon. I play this Gallantmon because I don't have additional War Greymon at the moment. But Gallantmon can steal games, especially against like purple. If you have a red Tamer in play, when he's digivolved, you destroy something 6,000 DP or less, so you can get rid of a blocker potentially, which is fantastic. And then obviously his when attacking effect is pretty powerful. You trash 1 security card for every 10 cards in your opponent's trash. So it can literally steal games because even if your opponent has like say 1 card in their security and you attack with him, it trashes the security, and then you're swinging for game. I actually never saw him today, not even once. I saw War Greymon a couple of times, but Gallantmon I did not see. Gallantmon I'm kind of torn about. I don't like the 4 Digivolution cost. Yes, it is a powerful on Digivolving effect, and the attacking can really steal games as well, but the 4 I think kind of hurts because even with Tai, you're not guaranteed to be able to Digivolve into him and attack on the same turn. So I'll probably end up cutting this eventually when I get my hands on maybe more War Greymon or more Omnimon to make more room for Phoenixmon. Speaking of which, Phoenixmon, pretty straightforward. 2-cost Digivolution for level 6 is great. 12k vanilla, 10 hard play. I think I hard played them a couple of times. Yeah, it's a pretty good card. I might up this again. I think playing 4 was a bit overkill without having more than 2 Omnimon. So if I had 3, I might play 3 or 4 of these, but just having 2 I think worked out pretty well for today. I think I might maybe cut a Volcanic Dramon for another Phoenixmon, but we'll see. And then again, the 2 Omnimon. Again, I would play 3 if I had it. I just didn't have them right now. Omnimon is a great card. I saw a lot of Omnimon today. Omnimon is I play it as like a response, right? You don't want to shotgun this always as soon as you see it over a mega. A lot of times you just want to wait and see what your opponent does. Maybe they play their own Omnimon and then you need to have a response for it, or get rid of like a bunch of different blockers that all have the same name or something. So Omnimon, really good card. Does have a high Digivolution cost, but I saw a lot of Omnimon mirror matches today in both the form of blue and red. So great card. Do not have more to say about it except I would play at least 1 more. All right, Tai. So this is the Tamer Tai that boosts your memory to 3 if you start off with 2 or less. And then the security attack that I mentioned, if your red Digimon has 4 or more Digivolution sources, it gets security attack +1. The second part of his effect, I think, came up maybe once this entire day in the 5 different matches that I played. But I think the memory effect is what's really important here, especially if you're playing against someone who does have a memory tamer in play. It gets kind of difficult when they're restricting or choking your memory, and then you have 1 or 2 to work with while they always have 3. So I think 2 is a good number here. I think 3 would definitely be too many. All right, then I play the 1 Tai just because I had 1 slot, and he really does help with setting up for Gallantmon and War Growlmon. And then, like I mentioned, having the extra 1000 DP to boost Volcanic Dramon or War Growlmon really does help when you're doing security checks. So I think it's a good card. I wouldn't run more of it. I wouldn't be opposed to cutting this for something better. I just haven't found what that something better is yet. And lastly, I play 4 Gaia Force. I've thought about cutting this to 3. I've seen some deck lists with 3, but I would not cut it after today. So Gaia Force just steals so many games. There have been games that I should have lost, matches I should have lost, but my opponent swings into security and it's a Gaia Force. There's a lot of times where I just Gaia Force my opponent back and forth. There were times where my opponent just played Omnimon and I'd Gaia Force it. I saw Gaia Force a lot today, both in hand and security. There were games where I saw like all 4. There were games that I saw 3 or 2. So Gaia Force is just an amazing card. Just remove any threat and they just have to deal with it. And it pairs really well with additional Gaia Forces, Omnimon, or Volcanicromon. So one thing I do want to talk about in this deck is that there are some big plays you can make. There's Omnimon, Volcanicromon if you're hard playing it, and Gaia Force. If you have like some combination of this and you're giving your opponent a lot of memory, then there's two things they can do. They can either build up their stack, right? So if they're playing like Omnimon Turbo, or they're playing like some kind of level 6 Turbo, they can go into that, right? They can make a big Digimon, and if it's in the battle area, and if you have Gaia Force in hand, then you have a response to that. Granted, they'll probably get a lot of memory out of that again, and they'll have to redo it, but then you just got rid of a bunch of cards that they had that they were probably saving to make a play like that. So I think that's pretty good. If they build out instead of building up, like, so if they're just try rookie rushing you by dropping a bunch of rookies after you play like an Omnimon, for example. Volcanicromon can really just shut them down right there. You just drop the Volcanicromon. So having these in hand is really good, I think. This combination, it makes you feel a lot safer because you have a response to what your opponent might do. And of course, if you're dropping Volcanicromon, you can always just Omnimon on top of that the following turn if you have that in hand, and then return that to hand if Omnimon can attack. So that is all for my deck profile. Just going over some of the matches. So round 1, I played Pablo, who was representing HGaming. I think he was also playing Omnimon, Red Omnimon, so I ended up actually going 2-0 against him. But yeah, those were pretty good games. Round 2, I played against John from Digital Daddies. He was also running Red Omnimon, a bunch of Red Omnimon today. But yeah, he ended up 2-0ing me. There wasn't much I could do to keep up, so yeah, he took both of those games. Round 3, I played against Little Rugged Plays. He was playing Mega Zoo. I think game 1 was pretty close. Game 2, he made some good plays. I just had a bunch of Gaia Forces to respond to his bigger plays, but he played it really well. It was really close. But again, huge shout out to him. Go ahead and check out his channel. He's a pretty young content creator, which is really impressive, honestly. So definitely check him out and subscribe to his channel. Along with all the other content creators who are part of this event and the ones I played against. Round 4, I played against Mike from Overground Gaming. I'll be linking his channel and all the other content creators that I've mentioned in the description below, so go ahead and check them out and subscribe to their channels. But yeah, I want to put a huge asterisk next to this match because it was more or less a stolen match. He was playing, I think, some kind of form of red with a Tyrannomon engine, so he's playing Taiga and running a couple of metal Tyrannomons in there. And obviously Dark Tyrannomons. Game 1, I don't remember who won. Game 2, someone else won. So both of them were really close. Game 3 also pretty much came down to the wire. So he had 2 Metal Tyrannomon, one of them with Greymon underneath, so he had the additional security attack +1. They also had piercing from Taiga, so it was looking pretty rough for me. I had 2 security left, so he could easily have just gamed me by attacking with the Metal Tyranno, getting rid of both of my security, and then attacking with the other one for game. And he had no security at that time. I just had some rookies on the field that I just wanted to brush with an attack and just game him. But yeah, I was looking pretty rough during my turn. I was ready to scoop when I realized, I play 4 Gaia Force, but haven't seen any of them all game, so I just kind of played more rookies and just kind of hoped and prayed that it would work out. So he swung with the first Metal Tyranno with the security check +1. First one was something that died, and then sure enough, that last security check was a Gaia Force, which got rid of his Metal Tyranno, and then I was free to swing for game the next turn. But yeah, that was really rough. He didn't have a blocker to follow up with either. It's a relief winning like that, but at the same time, I don't feel great about winning. I know losing to RNG and because of that is just really rough. So huge shout out to him. He played really well. It was a really close game, but again, I just won because of that Gaia Force in my security. So again, Gaia Force is just an amazing card. You want to see this in your security, which is why I think playing 4 is great. And if you're not seeing him in security, if you're hard drawing him, then even then it's a good response to things like Omnimon and other big cards. So Gaia Force was definitely the MVP of not only this match, but pretty much the entire day. All right, last match I played against Nathan from Ice Barrier. He was playing, I think, Blue Omnimon. I don't know if it was Turbo or not. He was playing Placiomon and a few other things. His build was pretty interesting. He was focusing more on removing Digivolution sources. So he was playing the Zudomon, which gets rid of Digivolution sources, I think, on Digivolve. It trashes 2. He was also playing some Leopardmon. So it was a pretty interesting deck to play against. I think we ended up going, it was also 2-1. I don't remember who won the first one, but they were both pretty close, I think, especially going to the last one. He had some big Placiomons, and then he would have probably won, or at least had like a really good chance of winning that game. I just had my 5 security, which I think he had not swung into that game, and then he ended up swinging with a Placeomon into a Phoenixmon, so he traded off for the 12, and that just kind of ruined his momentum there. So that kind of turned the game in my favor, and I was able to take that game, but it was ended up being incredibly close. A huge shout out to him and all the other players I played today. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. So just a quick recap. Borg Growlmon, definitely give him a try if you have not tried him out yet. If you're playing, 2 or 3 tamers, Skullgreymon did put in a lot of work. Galamon I don't care much for, but the main takeaway: Gaia Force steals games. Like it's honestly like it's not fair seeing this insecurity for your opponent. When I play Red Mirror, like I really hope I draw into my single War Greymon, just because I do not want to deal with this. This is just such a crazy card. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys. Again, if you like this deck profile, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this. And with that, I will see you guys next time.